Wouldn't you rather get it down kind of correct the first time instead of doing it by yourself? And second of all, the logo and all that, I can't tell you how many times I've seen entrepreneurs waste 6 months, 12 months, over a year, because web designers can be slow sometimes. Just waiting for that before building their audience, before, getting things started. And then they realize that the website or logo they decided they have to change it anyways once they get proof of concept and feedback from the market. So don't do that.
Thank you for joining the Free Time Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gaines. Our guest is Hailey Rowe. Even coaches need a coach, and that's where Hailey comes in. She talks about her early breakout success with a big firm, what caused her to start her own business, and what she learned along the way that can help your venture. Here's Hailey. You're one of the few people I know that have a degree in entrepreneurship. Now, do you feel like that helped you get started faster?
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing that is interesting, I know most people say, oh my gosh, my degree has nothing to do with what I do now or what my job is. And with my school, what I loved about it, and it is one of the top entrepreneur schools in the country, and what I loved about it is we got to take a class, for example, from the founder of Kinko's, Paul Orfalea. And he would teach us real life lessons. Like if we didn't shake his hand properly on the first day of class, he would send us to the back of the line and we'd have to start over until we had a firm handshake, eye contact, like things like that. And he would, interview us on the spot about real life situations that were going on in business or in the stock market. And if we didn't know the answer, he would make us look, very embarrassed in front of the class. And so there were things like that. I mean, of course, nothing can fully prepare you for entrepreneurship once you get into it. But there were a lot of things and I had a project, for example, where we were given $20, or it was something like $10 or $20. And we started a mason jar, coffee stand at school. Mason jars for some reason at that time were really cool. So it went well, but little funny challenges like that and being able to meet real entrepreneurs, it was like a great experience, and I'm really grateful for it. And I think it did teach me some things going into working in the startup world after college.
And after that, when you had that post-university experience and you started working with these companies, I was trying to think as I was looking through your background, just trying to guess what your mental process was when you decided to break away. And what a lot of people do, and you can confirm if you went down this similar path, particularly when you were working in kind of the coaching certification, working with a coaching certification company, and then health-based companies. A lot of people get in there and they get in that environment, and then they think to themselves, you know what? I could do that. And then they branch
Yes.
off and do their own thing. And I mean, that goes from musicians to watching somebody at a live show and go, you know what, I could do that. And then
Yeah.
they,
So it's interesting you say that, because what I told myself after college is I'm not ready yet to have my own business. I need to go get more real life experience. And what I thought was I had my dream job because I was really passionate about the companies I was working for. And I also was it was very hands-on, and I was being challenged all the time. And part of what was the catalyst for me was everybody was let go in one day because there were some delays going on that they weren't going to be able to deal with for quite a while. And that was a very sharp turn where oh, this actually wasn't the safest route. Thankfully, I'm still here since 2017 and love what I do.
and so obviously you had a very quick um, learning curve after that. You were like, look, I have to figure this out. I have to move forward, which it is painful, but it's a great way to start because you're standing on the ledge and you have to leap. Because I'm sure at that point you had to decide, am I going to go take a 9 to 5 somewhere, or am I going to
Right.
move forward and launch my business? Is that what you were feeling at that time?
Yeah, I was definitely faced with that decision. And sometimes I think when there's no other option or you just commit fully, like, nope, this is what I have to figure out and this is what I'm going to do, you will figure it out. And I think the other thing is you have to know your personality type as an entrepreneur. Like I tell some of my clients who are thinking about leaving their day job, and for some of them, it gets them all excited. They're like, I'd have so much more time. I'd just be able to crush it. And for others, they're like, oh no, I would feel super desperate all of a sudden. I would feel like anxiety, etc. And so for some of us, and I did this to a degree, I had like side projects. Like I had side jobs that I was doing, kind of freelance work in the background going on until I just reallocated my time. It's no brainer that I would just be making more of my business, and I saw my business validated. And then I was able to let those go with confidence. But for some of my clients, they're the opposite, where they need to, go all in, or other clients they don't, and they want to work side jobs, and that's the best way to do it. Because when you're coming to your business, like I need it to provide for me and I need it to validate me, and you have that kind of rocky relationship with it, you're going to be serving from just a different space. Leave my job and go all in on my business. Just make sure you check in with your personality type and make the decision from there.
Have you had, I would assume most of your clients, when the ones that are just starting, they don't have an email list, they're kind of at ground zero. What's usually the first thing that you're recommending them to do to build that trust?
Thing that I call the 4 steps of client attraction and channel. You're going to be moving through these 4 steps with every lead. So, aside from first figuring out my client's message and what they're offering and, what makes them differentiated, then it's time to actually start marketing. And they go through these 4 steps with whatever platform or marketing method we pick. So they are connect, engage, pre-offer, and sell. And so what I mean by connect is that's the first step. That's the step where you're getting visible, and then you want to engage. So this is where what kind of, if you're going to have a lead magnet, meaning you want to grow your email list and you want to give a free gift up front in exchange for gathering emails, you want to be able to hear from your audience what they would find most useful in that, so that you can make the offer, which is step 3, which is a pre-offer. And then give them that quick win up front, build that trust, and then invite them to your sales phase, which is either a call with you or maybe a webinar or something like that, follow-up emails in your funnel, where you're selling your actual, you're inviting to your actual offer. So with that said, I think a lot of people get tripped up because they skip steps. Like we've all seen people message us on social media as business owners saying like, hey, do you want to buy my, some long pitchy message? And what that is they're skipping steps. They didn't find out first, what challenge or goal are you working on? What kind of content would you find useful? Or what kind of things? They didn't get any info from you about what you find important. And so therefore they're making an offer out of place. Versus if we know what somebody has, is working towards or has a goal about or is excited about, our pre-offer can be more appropriate for them and can be an invitation-based way to nurture them and bring them to the next stage of nurturing and building trust and giving, value up front. And then it makes more sense to invite to the sales phase.
How can you help explain to someone to turn their marketing into a filter where only the ideal clients get through?
I think you actually need less filtering. Honestly, you need to just start having conversations. You need to start booking calls so you can get practice. You need to learn as much as you possibly can about your audience. I see too often like beginners being like, well, I need a scalable funnel right now. And I need this like comprehensive form before someone can book a call with me that's like 40 questions and blah, blah, blah. So I think one of the biggest mistakes, honestly, is for newbies who need to get out there and who need to get experience and who need to practice, pre-qualifying too much. Now, when you get to a stage where you are fully booked or you're booking a lot of calls or you find you're wasting a lot of time, with people who are just completely out of left field, okay, then we can solve for that. And what I suggest is there's a couple ways you can address this. One is through the content you put out and the questions you ask when you're engaging with your leads. So in other words, if you're putting out content and you're always talking about being on a budget and finding the cheapest way to do something and whatever, you're probably not going to attract, if you're looking to attract, for example, high ticket clients, you're probably not going to attract that crowd. And you're just talking about things that would be quote unquote nice to have, but not urgent for people. That may also be another mistake. So looking at your content, looking through it, saying to yourself, would this be like my client saying, oh my gosh, it's like you're in my head, or oh my God, I have that thought this morning. Just making sure you're speaking to them. And the other part is with the questions you ask. So when I mentioned in the 4 steps of client attraction, how you'll have a engage stage where you're finding out what's useful to them, what kind of challenges they're looking to solve, what kind of content would they find useful. So if you are asking questions that aren't allowing you to get any insight about what they find useful and helpful, and you're not approaching, like maybe you're asking something kind of just not super intentional, we want to change your question. And then the other part is with your application. If you are going to have an application, that's another way to pre-qualify and filter people. Or you can filter people on your email list. So if you're going to have an application before people have a discovery call with you to work with you to see if it's a fit, you can put questions in there that allow you to know, like, how urgent is this for them? What's their timeline for wanting to work towards this? Are they the key decision maker in this situation? Things like that.
We can go back to, I just want to hear, of course, about Amy Porterfield, because she wrote that great book, 2 Weeks Notice. I actually bought it this morning.
Cool.
And, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about making connections and convert, so she converted me to a customer. I had heard her name, and then I watched the podcast, and of course, she's this extremely bubbly, charismatic. I mean, just amazing. And I was on the YouTube version of the interview with you, and I thought that was great. Can you walk us back through how that connection happened, so that
Yeah.
and how the interview occurred, that you were able to get her on your channel?
Yeah. So for anybody who wants to catch it, it's haleyrowe.com/Amy-Porterfield. And what happened was her team reached out because she was launching a book, as you know, 2 weeks notice. And she was looking to partner as one of her main marketing strategies, which for anybody listening, it's a great idea to think about who has an audience that complements yours or that overlaps who you're trying to attract and who complements what you do. So in other words, Amy Porterfield is not a business coach for health, life, and mindset coaches and service providers. She writes books for them. She does courses for them. She teaches them, but I do like the personalized coaching. And so she thought it would be, or apparently her team thought it would be, a good partnership. And so they reached out and said, hey, we're doing this Instagram live interview series with a couple different people. And we'd love for you to interview her on your channel. And that is how it came to be. And so I interviewed her. And what's cool is that I didn't realize at the time, of course, I went in with very low expectations because I've done a lot of things. And I'm kind of at that point where, like, I've been around the block for many years. And so I don't believe anything until it's signed, sealed, delivered and finished and whatever. And maybe that's a bad thing, but it actually helps me keep my energy. So anyways, I was like, okay, I'll believe it once it's all done, once it's all recorded. And I'm not going to expect anything crazy from it. It's not like I was expecting to have new clients or all these things. But what happened was it opened the door to bigger podcast guests for me, because I was able to say now, oh, hey, I've had so-and-so on my show. I think you'd be great too. And a lot of people recognize that name and were like, oh, okay, well, this is a serious podcast, right? So I was able to repurpose the live into a podcast interview. And I did it was crazy. It was like, I was so nervous because I had been following her in the early days of my business. She was one of the first people I saw as like an online entrepreneur. And there were instantly like 300 people on our live. It was like, I opened it and it was just like, boom, so-and-so showed up, so-and-so showed up. And so it was really cool in that sense. And I did actually have someone who caught it, who was became a member of my membership and certain things like that. So it was a really cool experience. And what I think was the most important thing is just realizing that these are all just people, and um, you know, it's okay to be nervous, but you just have to realize like they're just like you and they started out just like you, and bringing that energy into the interview and being curious, I think, is a good way to go.
How do you keep, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how do you keep your spirits up and maintain? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you have a more stoic approach as well, but
Right. So I call that whatever you're just talking about, where it's like how devastated you get from a result not happening the way that you had anticipated or wanted. I think as entrepreneurs, our job is to get really good at having a quick bounce back rate from those situations. And the faster you can bounce back and just keep moving forward, the bigger and better your business will be, in my opinion. And so when I was first experiencing things for the first time, like, oh, really hard rejection, or, oh, bad situation that just I hired someone and I had big hopes and it didn't work out the way I wanted, or whatever. Those types of things, if you let them set you back, you're the one that gets, your business gets the punishment. And so I think for me, it's more about protecting my energy. It's not to, and I think here's the other problem. We love our businesses usually, especially if you start a business because you're passionate about coaching or teaching or podcasting or whatever it is. You're passionate about your craft. And so then we tend to bring a lot of ourselves into it, which is good. But it's bad when we bring all of ourselves into it. And so then we take things very personally and internally when something just business wise doesn't work out, which happens all the time. So I like to approach my business more like an experiment and more like something outside of me. It's a separate entity from me. And yes, I'm still going to bring my personality into it. I'm still going to be passionate about it, but it's not me. So if someone says no to my business or something doesn't go the way that I want, it doesn't mean that I'm a loser. It doesn't mean that I failed. It's just that, oh, something in the business isn't working. And we have to look at it like a scientist to figure out what's not working and protect however you need to protect your energy and have what I call like a reset ritual. So if you had a bad situation and you need to go take a walk, or you need to go journal about it or whatever to deal with it, or you need to set aside a time where you're gonna, this is another thing I learned. I can't remember where I learned it, but like having a dedicated time to worry and just call it the worry bucket and write everything down, put it all in your bucket or in your journal or wherever. And then you'll revisit it tomorrow at the dedicated worry time, just so it's not flowing into the rest of your day. So I think things like that really help you play the long game in your business. And it's really helped me as well. And this, like, as I told you, once you're going through it a lot, you get a lot of, you get more wins with more rejections. And so you just have to become okay with that. And the more you go through it, I used to have, as you said, like it'd take me 2 days to bounce back from one rejection. And now it's like, oh, that's just part of the puzzle. That's just how it works. And I'm fine within 2 seconds, So I think that's a key thing to learn.
can you talk a little bit about somebody getting their niche down so that they will be able to choose the right platform? Because each platform has its age
Yeah,
and kind of gender majorities on there.
for sure. So a couple things I just want to go back to really quick, because you brought up a really good point. With growing your business and reciprocity, I think it is really important to see how can you be useful? How can you be curious about others? How can you be a connector? And the more you lean into those questions, the more you're going to see your business grow and your partnerships grow and things like that. And how can you make it a win-win? And what's in it for the other person when they connect with you, collaborate with you, that kind of thing. And when you come at your business with like, I want to plant as many seeds as I can and give as much as I can, I think that's really important, because even when we were talking about rejection and how you can let it hurt you so much, when you believe, your beliefs dictate how you do everything. So if you believe I'm not in demand and nobody wants to hear from me, and so that rejection hits harder because you think that was the only person who had interest in working with you, versus if you believe I have something really amazing to offer and that's just, one person in the whole sea of people who really want this, it hurts less, right? So just a side note, there's whatever you pick to do, even with the social media question you just asked me, your beliefs behind it are going to matter a lot. So when it comes to picking your social media platform, I think there's a couple things to consider. One is, where does your niche hang out? So as you said, like if it's people who are, if you work with a certain type of professional, LinkedIn would be amazing because you can search certain types of job titles. If you work with moms who are over 50, okay, maybe Facebook is a great place. Now, the other question is, what can you be consistent with? If you hate Facebook and you haven't logged into your account since 2009, and you don't believe in Facebook because you hate, Mark Zuckerberg for some reason or whatever, okay, well then we probably aren't going to do well picking that, right? And your ideal client actually probably is everywhere, honestly, but there's a more educated guess and more, a demographic that would, or a social media platform that would probably make more sense, but you do have to be able to be consistent with it. And then the last thing is, what kind of content do you like delivering the most? Are you someone who loves being on video, or do you love writing long form content? And sometimes that will play into the decision, because if you love being on video, well, you might do well on Instagram because you can do short reels and things like that. If you love writing posts, well, maybe you will be more of a Facebook person, or, so I think those are all questions to consider. And then I also think it's less about posting and it's more about the engaging you're doing and the collaborating you're doing on these platforms. So in other words, if you are on Instagram and you've never, ever acknowledged your followers, you've never said thank you for following me, you've never welcomed them to your community, you've never offered them your free welcome gift, for following you, if you have something like that, that's a lead magnet, that's way more important than just posting to post. And I know this because I had a Facebook group that had, I think it was getting to the point where it's like it was like at least 4,400 people. And it grew organically because it had keywords in it that were my target audience, and it was a great thing. But it got hacked, unfortunately. I also had a business page that was over 7,000 people, and also got hacked. Had to start from scratch. I barely use my Facebook page anymore. There's, like 4 people on it. So my point here is, the reason I didn't get so distressed about that is I had been all along growing my email list, sending everybody to my email list, building connections with those people, etc. And it wasn't like that was the only thing that I had going, So I think if you're never connecting your content and your connections on social media to your email list, or somewhere where it's in your control to have those connections and be able to deeper nurture those connections, you may be missing out, and social media may be something that, you're not fully utilizing.
And you reminded me that too, when we're going through that phase where we don't think people are interested in what we have to offer. One great way to get out of that funk too is to help somebody else, because so I struggled with gratitude for a really long time. And now I'm much more aware of it, because nobody's self-taught. Nobody does it alone. In the U.S. particularly, we have this kind of, I did it myself. I climbed the mountain, but really nobody does anything alone. We all have mentors. And when I became more aware of that, that really helps. So sometimes when I'm in a funk, if I'm able to help somebody else that has nothing to do with my business, that will also bring me out, because you're still giving value. There are a lot of people out there that need help in a lot of different ways. And it's not just business related. Sometimes people just need a kind word. Somebody on Facebook 2 days ago said, I want to be a podcaster. I'm not sure how to start. I'm 72 years old. I sent him a Zoom link. I said, hey, let's chat. 30 minutes. I had, was nothing business related. I showed me my gear and all that. And he's from LA. And I said, I'm surprised in LA you don't know more about audio and video than I do, because there's just some great musicians and recording studios there. But he was so grateful at the end, but the conversation was so good. I probably got more out of it than he did,
Yeah.
because he was an amazing guy, he had an amazing story, and yeah. So sometimes just helping people with nothing to gain out of it, just you get a big boost from that, because there's a lot of people out there that need help, and people are afraid to ask for help. So that's something tough too. When you're working with clients, some people don't know how to ask for help, and that's very foreign to some people. Do you run into that, and how do you deal with that? And do you struggle with that personally too when you need help?
Yeah. So I think that I've had a lot of clients who, they'll send me a question or something. I'll be like, sorry to bother you or something like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I want you to bother me. I want you to, tell me when you need help, communicate, because in business, nobody can read your mind. Okay. So that's the first thing. I always tell my clients, like, I can't read your mind. I know I know what my clients generally go through, which is how I developed my system and what I take them through. But communication is key. And so if you're struggling in business with asking for help, it's really more of a skill you have to develop, just because we've probably been used to doing it ourselves, especially as solopreneurs. And so it can feel really foreign or just awkward, or like, I don't know how to phrase this, or I don't know how to communicate this, or I don't know who to ask. And so it's a lot of just figuring out, like, how can it, I read a book by, I think it's Ben Hardy, called Who Not How. And it's all about how we as entrepreneurs will go so much further faster if we do ask for help, and if we do get the right people to help us with the right things. So I think a first step in like learning how to ask for help is start first just by, how can I articulate what's bothering me or what I need help with? And just write it for yourself first, because sometimes you'll come up with your own solutions, or, oh, I want to listen to a podcast about this, or now I know what to search when like searching for this problem. But then ask, who would be really great to help me out with this? Who do I know who might know the answer to this? Or what are sources where I could ask for help, like a Facebook community, or, going to a networking event and maybe talking with other entrepreneurs about this, or things like that. And the last thing I'll say is have a coach or a mentor, because it is something that will get you outside of your comfort zone because you've invested in something, but also you'll get better at asking for help and doing things. And you'll realize, like, wow, I did not have to spend 3 weeks pondering this. We could have decided that in one session. And I've had a client who said, I feel like with coaching, I've been able to accomplish in like 3 or 4 hours what I had been putting off, or what I had been challenged by, or what I had been avoiding for like 10 months prior. So I think once you see the benefit of asking for help, you'll get a lot better at doing it more.
There's that accountability you mentioned. So that's why people get it, just like at the gym, in almost any endeavor. In music, we didn't talk much about that, but you've got a fantastic musical background, and I'm shocked how many people I've had on the show that either before the show or after I found out these were heavyweights in entertainment. There, a gentleman in LA, he just kind of casually mentioned that he was in the studio business, and now he coaches audiobook narrators, people that want to narrate. So if you write a book, Hailey, you would go to him and he would help you set up your gear and all that. And I looked him up, and he's an amazing guitarist. I mean, just, on the big stages. And you've had a wonderful music career too. Now you're still doing the band where it's the ensemble group doing hits from the past. Is that still going on?
Sub in a wedding band.
Wedding band. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But you've got some viral success as well. Some songs. I don't see you. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that, because I don't see you mention that much in the podcast, but you've had some really great viral success on the musical side. And I'm just shocked that there are all these great people that are, they're facial front to the world is their entrepreneur side, but there's also this amazing musical talent in there. So, we think of business people as this very, kind of dry business, A and B, uh, ones and zeros, but actually there are some fantastic creative powers in the business world as well. I think that's really nice to see.
Yeah, well, I think the thing with that is auditioning and doing music or doing acting or whatever that is, it teaches you honestly a lot of skills that are going to pour over into entrepreneurship. So getting rejected, that happens all the time in showbiz. Or, having to go to auditions for free, take your whole day, drive. I used to have to drive to the city. Now they do all these things online, but all, it with no promise of return, with no promise of even hearing whether or not you got the role. And in business, that's how it's going to work. You're going to make offers. You're not going to know if people are going to buy. And so it's so funny to me because I see a lot of people like, well, I need to know exactly how every step of the way in entrepreneurship is going to go. And I feel like they didn't have that thing that I had with the showbiz or auditioning, or maybe when you're in sports, I guess that could also transpire. But like, you're not going to know. There's a lot of uncertainty, and you have to get okay with just giving your best, whether or not you know the end result. And so I didn't go into music full time because I didn't like. I have a lot of passions, and for music, you really have to love it and be a diehard and be like willing to live in your car and all the things. And I was like, I like music, but I don't like need it to fuel my soul. Like I have other interests, and I love coaching, and I love teaching, and I love what I do in the marketing world. And that has more reward almost on the other side of it. Personally rewarding because I can see the people I help. And professionally, there's more room for growth, in my opinion, just based on, what I've experienced. So it's one of those things where I give so much credit to musicians who are full-time pursuing it. And I'm very blessed in that I still get to have that piece of me. I still get to sub in a wedding band when I want to, but it's not like, it didn't have to be my only thing.
Who's the ideal client for you when you're marketing? What's that perfect person you want? Is it somebody that just started or somebody that's moving maybe from low ticket to high ticket?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I work primarily with health and wellness professionals, life coaches, mindset coaches, or service providers. You usually have an online service-based business. And I work with ones who are starting out, meaning maybe you're not clear on your whole business model or offers. Maybe you've sold a couple of clients, but it's never been anything sustainable or hasn't been consistent, or maybe you've just had practice clients so far. That's the main group that I work with, is like, really, let's get focused on building your foundations, getting you the sales and marketing skills to be able to make this your real career. But then I do have a side of my business where I do private coaching and consulting, and I've worked with people who are more struggling to scale, or like I had a client who was very, very successful locally. But she wanted to move online, and that really overwhelmed her, and she was burnt out because she was overworking and she needed to delegate. So I've had some clients on that front as well. But most of the clients that I work with are in that stage of like, I am so overwhelmed about all the different marketing options. I don't know where to start. I feel like my message is messy, things like that.
Whether you have a business or want to start one, you need ideas. Pick up our book, Scintilla, the ultimate guide to generating business ideas, products, and services. Available on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, hardcover, and now as an audiobook. After buying the book, go to www.freetimemastermind.com, click Other, and type Book Bonus Material to get access to the book's vault of extra information, as well as access to a private Facebook group for book owners. Find the link to the book in the description. And for people like you that are dealing with folks that are at the closer to the beginning of their journey, you have a much larger educational role than someone going where somebody wants to, they've hit the million and they want to get the 5 million, or they're in Chicago and they also want to move and have an office in St. Paul, the scalability and duplicatability. So when you're doing that educational aspect of it, what is it that you wish they knew before they came to you? Because I'm sure there's a couple of misconceptions you run into very frequently.
Yeah. Well, the first thing naturally that came to mind is you do not need a super fancy website or logo before you get out there and get started and start working with clients. The amount of times I hear someone come to me and they'll say, well, I really want to do this, but I need to like figure out a couple more things on my own first. Like I need to get clear on my niche first, or I need to get my logo first. I'm like, first of all, the message and the niche is what we start with. Like we work on that together. Wouldn't you rather get it down kind of correct the first time instead of doing it by yourself? And second of all, the logo and all that, I can't tell you how many times I've seen entrepreneurs waste 6 months, 12 months, over a year, because web designers can be slow sometimes, just waiting for that before building their audience, before, getting things started. And then they realize that the website or logo they decided they have to change it anyways once they get proof of concept and feedback from the market. So don't do that because you're probably going to have to redo it if you don't test and get, feedback first. So going back to that minimum viable product you were talking about earlier, I think that is the way to go and the way to start, number one. Number two, the other misconception or myth that I see is a lot of times we think, what would I want? And what kind of offer would I find really great? What kind of freebie would I find really great? Instead of thinking about your actual audience in their own words, I wrote a 200-page ebook as a freebie one time that I thought was so good. This was me like when I was really young, and I really quickly learned you don't want to go make the effort to make a whole freebie that nobody wants. You need to check first, and you need to make it based on what they want, not what you want for them selfishly. Like I want them to really care so much about habits that this ebook is going to be the thing. And I was so wrong. So that's the other thing. And then the last thing is, I think the way to go into your business is actually underestimating what it I think a lot of people go into their business thinking things are going to be faster and that they're going to get so much done and that, XYZ is going to happen. And then when it doesn't, they use it against themselves, or they like punish themselves, or they procrastinate or whatever. And I would rather have you go into your business underestimating and being like, dang, I am moving through things. I think there's certain situations where we overestimate, like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me so long to figure out my niche and my message and my offer, which I don't think it has to take you that long. So there's certain things I'd say you're probably overestimating how long it's going to take you. But then there's other things that you're underestimating, like, oh, I should probably have 10K months within 2 days of starting my business. And I would rather you come in with the mindset of, I'm going to refine until I get there, whatever it takes type of mentality. So you're not in this rushed, like weird energy. And then you'll be pleasantly surprised when you do move faster and you come at your business with a better energy.
How can people find you, Hailey? Because I'm sure people are going to be interested to reach out to you.
Yeah, well, thank you again for having me, Robert. This was super fun. You can find me at haileyrowe.com. I have a free weekly planning system for entrepreneurs. So if you're ever stuck with what to prioritize, how do I get more done in my business? How do I put the client generating activities above certain things that I've been kind of dilly-dallying with? You can get that at haileyrowe.com/time planning, all one word. And I'm also on Instagram at Hailey_Rowe. Feel free to reach out and share your entrepreneur story. I would love to hear from you. And then I have the Marketing Hub Facebook group if anybody wants to network with other entrepreneurs, and the Health Coach Nation podcast, which is coaching tips, business tips for coaches, people in the wellness space, things like that. So those would be the best places.
Well, thank you so much. The Free Time Mastermind group now offers special videos available only to Mastermind Insiders. Go to www.freetimemastermind.com, click Other, and type YouTube Insider to get free access. Also, click like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video. Thank you for watching the Free Time Mastermind podcast.